And our passage for today is a short one, but if you've read the Bible at all in your life, it's a well-known one. Hebrews 11:1. It says simply, "Faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see." Again, faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see. But what is faith really? I think if we were to go around the room and ask that question of those around us, we would get a lot of different answers. First off, living human life takes a degree of faith for all of us, whether one considers themselves particularly religious or not. Faith is not just a spiritual thing, it's also a human thing. And we all use faith in our lives every day, whether we call it faith or we call it something else. You ever ride the metro in the morning on the way to work and you just assume that it's going to drop you off at the same stop that it did last week? That's faith. You ever assume that on a certain day of the month you're going to receive a check from your employer for a certain amount of money? That's faith. Do you ever go to bed at night and it's dark because the sun is on the other side of the planet, and you assume that when you wake up in the morning it will be brighter outside? That is faith. Faith only becomes something spiritual when that faith is directed toward a God, a deity. The word faith, believe it or not, did not originate with the writings of the apostles. It wasn't invented by the writers of the Bible. The word had been used for millennia before the scriptures were ever even dreamed or written down. The word faith in the Greek language, the language in which the New Testament was written down in, is the word pistis. And it is okay to snicker. I realize that is kind of a funny sounding word. Pistis. And in Greek mythology, the word pistis referred to the embodiment of good faith or trust or reliability. Now, let me ask you something. In your own life, how is it that trust forms? Whether that's between you and someone else or you and an object that you rely on. What must happen for you to deem something trustworthy or reliable? Well, you have to have had prior experience with it, yes? And for something to be reliable, we also have to have had prior experience with it in order to deem it that way. In other words, faith isn't, as we so often think of it today, as it's so often talked of today. Faith isn't some untested channel of ignorance that we open between ourselves and God, whereby we get the things that we want from God. And it's unfortunate that so many define it that way because it cheapens something that's deeply important. Faith, according to its own definition, is a trust in and a reliance on someone or something. This can be between us and an object. This can be between us and others. And yes, it can be between us and God. But it's not something that we muster up or get more of to obtain things or to earn things. It is a genuine reliance, a deep level of trust that we place in someone or something. For so many years of my life, I got this wrong. I had it so backwards, so mixed up. I used the word faith in my own life as a substitute for everything that I couldn't explain yet. If there was a gap in my knowledge about such and such a mystery, I would insert faith there to bridge that gap. And this is actually one of the most valid critiques of the Christian belief system by those who don't subscribe to it. When someone says the phrase, oh, the God that you believe in is just a God of gaps or a God of the gaps. That's valid because for many of us, that's who and what God is. I remember saying things in my life for so many years like, well, I don't know why I believe what I do. I just take it on faith. And looking back now, I see that that wasn't faith at all. That was just superstition. Faith is not a substitute for a lack of information. Faith is being assured of something because of information, even when we can't touch or handle or see the thing itself. I am going to nerd out for a second about astronomy, if that's okay with you. If you check out for a second, it's fine. But I will come back to something more useful. But I love astronomy. I love science. So nerd with me for a second. I think one of the greatest examples of how faith works that comes to my mind is the existence in the cosmos of something called dark matter. Has anyone ever heard of that? Raise your hand if you've heard of that. Dark matter is, they're these, what we call dark matter are these places in outer space where we see the results of mass, but we don't see the thing itself. There's just nothing there, but yet the things around this nothingness are behaving as if there is mass there. NASA explains it this way. Dark matter is composed of particles that do not absorb, reflect, or emit light, so they cannot be detected by observing electromagnetic radiation. Listen to this. Dark matter is material that cannot be seen directly. But we know that dark matter exists because of the effect it has on objects that we can observe directly. Scientists study dark matter by looking at the effects it has on visible objects. Scientists believe that dark matter may account for the unexplained motion of the stars within galaxies. In 1997, there was a Hubble Space Telescope image that revealed light from a distant galaxy cluster being bent by another cluster. And based on the way that this light was bending, scientists estimated that the mass of this cluster was 250 times greater than the visible matter in the cluster. That makes absolutely no sense because there is something there that is doing the bending, but it's invisible. It can't be seen. It can't be touched. It can't be handled. It can't be observed directly. Do you see faith at work there? I'll give you another example. If that's too nerdy, I'll give you an example that's a bit more down to earth, pun intended, if you will. Let's take this thing that we call love. Anybody here believe in love? Raise your hand if you believe in love. Yeah, I do too. We write songs about love. We write poems about love. Most great movie narratives are centered around the idea of love. But have you ever seen love directly? Have you extracted it and put it into a beaker and then sent it off to Atlanta so that it might be reproduced and then sent to doctors all over the world to inject into the population that's in need of more love? No. You have never seen love. I have never seen love. No one has. What you and I call love is an invisible thing that affects visible things, right? But you can only see its effects. You can't see the thing itself. And like dark matter, love cannot be observed directly, but we know that it exists because of the effect that it has on objects that we can observe directly. We believe it to be a thing, but it cannot be put under a microscope. We can look at brain scans of two people in love with one another, and those brain scans produce very definite, very repeatable patterns. But again, the pattern is not the thing itself. It's only the effect that the thing has on people. And when two people are in love, we see other repeatable patterns start to emerge. They hold hands, they kiss, they call each other at odd hours of the day. If they're apart, even on separate continents, they are thinking about one another, and they experience grief that they're not closer to one another. But again, that's not the thing itself, it's only the effects. We believe in the thing that we call love because we see and we feel the visible results of an invisible thing that we have never observed directly. And these two examples, one of them incredibly nerdy, the other a little bit more understandable, are really good examples of how faith works. If you're here this morning and you don't believe in God, or if you're watching or listening online this morning and you don't believe in God, do you believe in dark matter? Have you ever fallen in love with somebody? Because it takes the same kind of faith to believe in those two things that it does to believe in a God. God is not a God of the gaps. Believing in God is a choice that we make based on the effect that we see on objects that we can observe directly. Kindness, goodness, faithfulness, meekness, self-control, patience, openness, genuineness, compassion, service, caring for those around us and caring for our world. These are some of the effects that we see when a human being places their faith in God. And my question to you this morning, if you are a person that doesn't believe in God, and I'm nowhere even close to talking about the God of Christianity. Just talking about the idea of something beyond you, more powerful than you. If you're a person here this morning that doesn't believe in God, is that something you might be willing to explore in your life? Is that something you might be willing to begin to watch for the visible results of in the world? And my question to those of you here this morning who already believe in God is, are your beliefs just emotional band-aids for your fears and your inner voices of self-loathing? Or are they an ongoing interaction with a thing that you have a hunch is there that you can't see, but whose effects can be seen in your life when you respond to it? A man named G. Elton Trueblood, who was a Quaker author and theologian, he was also a chaplain at both Harvard and Stanford universities, said it so perfectly when he said, "Faith is not belief without proof. It is trust without reservation." Faith is not belief without truth. It is trust without reservation. And I realize this morning that there are many who claim to believe in a God, and because of their beliefs in that God, they do horrible things in the world. But what about those odd individuals who claim to believe in a God, who are doing things that go against every notion of self-preservation, who do good in the world at their own expense, who put others first, who stand between the oppressed and their oppressors, and they push back and they say, no, this stops right now, even if I have to give my life for it. And when they're asked why they live this way, and they answer, because my beliefs compel me to live this way, because of the God I believe in compels me to live this way. There's only two options. They're either insane, completely nuts, or they are interacting with some sort of a presence that is advising them and guiding them to behave that way in the world. It can't be anything other than those two things. What if you don't have to surrender your mind and your intellect and your sense of reason to be a person of faith? In fact, what if faith demands of you that you use your mind to its fullest? To be able to discern truth from error, right from wrong, and fact from phantoms. I believe in God, but I can't tell you what my God looks like. I've never seen him or her or it or them face to face. All I know is that when I study the writings of spiritual people who are on the same quest that I am, or when I pray, or when I meditate, whether that's privately in my own home or whether that's here collectively in environments like this. All I know is that when I do those things, then I go out into the world and I live my life according to what I glean from those experiences. And my life is a better life. And not only is it better for me, but it's better for all those in my life that I interact with. That doesn't mean because I've accessed that information and put it into practice that I'm entitled to explain everything about God in precise, formulaic, comprehensive models. But it does point to the idea that something is there, that something is happening, that something is going on in those experiences that makes me a more thoughtful person. A person who is more like the person that I aspire to be. And that is something that for me in my life is worth exploring. I don't understand all the rudiments of it. I don't know what to call it at times. The only label that seems to fit the thing is the word God. Faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see. What might our lives begin to look like if we gave that a chance? Or a second chance? Or a third chance? What if we've got this backwards? Perhaps it is okay to believe based on evidence by how you, the visible object, are affected by the capital I, invisible. Maybe that's what we've been missing all along. Faith, not a thing of doing and accumulating and answering every question in the world, but a living, vibrant tether between us and God that makes us live in the world more like Jesus Christ. Let's pray.